Dealing with lawsuit threats. Hopefully, you won't have to apply the knowledge of this course, but sometimes it is possible that a client relationship will turn sour and they will start talking lawsuit. I'm going to show you how to deal with those and minimize the impact of that. America, land of the free and home of the litigious. We are so happy here in America. Everything has to do with lawyers and avoiding lawyers and the big cash payouts that some people see in the news where somebody was awarded millions of dollars because they used some kind of product and now there's some kind of class action lawsuit and it's just a big payday that people see lawsuits as. Unfortunately, it's the go-to way that some people deal with problems. And in most cases, it takes more time and money to try to collect money from a favorable judgment than to just let it go. I was in real estate. I had a few real estate offices. One time a vendor had left me a few $1,000s. They took my money, but they never did anything with it. So I took him to court and I won outright. He never showed up for court and I got a warrant out for his arrest. And guess what? I still haven't gotten my money. That was 13 years ago, 14 years ago, something like that. It's just so hard. Just because you get a favorable judgment does not mean the defendant's going to cut over a check. It would have actually, you can take it to another level, but technically it takes thousands of dollars to get money from someone through a favorable judgment. So just because you got a judgment in court doesn't mean that you won anything. Just be aware. I mean, a vast majority of threats never get followed up on, and that's the absolute truth. And I mean vast majority, like well over 90%. I don't know if there's any statistics out there that say that. So what you shouldn't do, first of all, don't panic. Okay, it's not the end of the world. There are a lot of alternatives than court. And even if there is an appearance in court, it's still not the end of the world. Okay, it's not that big of a deal. I've been in court several times and it's never as scary as you really think it is. Don't fire back. Okay, the instinct in you is to fight back as soon as you get like a lawsuit threat. And it makes it worse. Let it gel in your mind, your response, and it will seem so much better 12 hours or 24 hours later. And just remember, a lot of this stuff is frivolous. I mean, it's like he said, she said, and you didn't do this on time, or you did this and you said you didn't, or vice versa. And courts don't like frivolous lawsuits. They get really annoyed at them. So they make it hard for you to even get into court with all the paperwork and legal stuff that has to go on to just get an appointment at a court. Just know that don't panic and don't fire back immediately. Okay, those are the two big personality traits I can give you. This is a list of what you should do. Previously, we just went through what you shouldn't do right here. And now we're going through what you should do. First of all, be the better person. A lot of times when a lawsuit threat turns into an actual court appearance, what makes its way in the court hearing is the stuff after the threat, all the conversations, the threats and the name calling, and you get to see how immature the other person is, or maybe how you were. The judge sees that, the jury sees that. So it's, hopefully you won't have to deal with a jury, but if the judge sees all these emails about, no matter how professional you appear in court, but if they see how immature you're talking, then it's makes you that much worse, especially if it's in writing. Stay calm. The worst thing you can do, and this is the opposite of panic, but just the worst thing you can do is panic. Just stay calm and make sure that you keep a level head and a professional head, and just understand that this is such small potatoes over everything that's going on in your life, and it really doesn't mean as much as you might think it does at first. Always have an attorney for go-to questions and consult them early. I have several, actually, just on call that I've formed relationships with that I know, depending on their specialty, I might ask two different attorneys the same question to compare answers. Seek a therapist if needed. I know a freelancer who does this, who just in his nature of his work, he gets sued or he gets a lot of lawsuit threats. Not a very common industry, won't go into it, but just the nature of his work, he gets threats a lot, and he goes to a therapist, and the therapist provides good feedback that an attorney won't. Attorneys look at facts and they look at the law, right? A therapist will look at your mind and how you approach the situation. A therapist might be a good alternative for you. Contact your insurer. Hopefully you have insurance. If you have an insurer, a lot of times any threats like that get handed right over to them. They have attorneys that will take care of that for you, because if you lose a lawsuit, sometimes depending on what insurance you have, they'll actually be liable to pay and help you pay for a judgment. Sometimes they will step in and mitigate and provide legal advice. Have a mediation or arbitration clause in your contract. Remember, don't work with clients out of contract. And there's always some kind of termination clause in there. And there's also a clause in there that shows what happens if there's a problem. A lot of them have arbitration clauses. And an arbitration is a judgment that you would get. Basically, it's just like court, but it's not an official court appearance. And courts love them because it keeps a lot of these lawsuits out of court. But it's a mutually decided upon arbitrator that is court appointed, and they will allow you to present your case. Your opponent will present his case, and they will determine a ruling that is bound by law, just like a court system. Mediation is kind of the same way, except it's not bound by law. It's more of a gentleman's agreement that, if the decision is in my favor, then I will get paid, or whatever the case. So have a mediation or arbitration clause in your contract. That way they have to do that before they go to court. Start documenting timelines and correspondence. This is so important because as memory fades, so does your ability to capture that important information. And the first thing a court is going to want to see, or an arbitrator or mediator, is a timeline of everything that happened. What was promised from the beginning, what was delivered, whatever the situation is, he said this, she said that. But if you document everything with actual screenshots of whatever you want to provide, maybe emails, and have a timeline for everything, and so the people you're presenting to see how a situation unfolds, then they can really understand who's right or who's wrong. Review and update your client agreement for lawsuit vulnerability. I had mentioned in previous class AAR, after action review. Whenever you have an issue with a client, you should always update your client agreement to prevent any further issues like that happening again. From a legal standpoint, what I do is I go to my lawyer and I say, hey, Mr. Lawyer, I just had to get rid of this client because this, and this. And he looks at my contract and he says, all right, then we need to update this section to make sure that mitigates that issue, that you're not exposed to any potential lawsuit from that situation happening again. And protect your assets. Talked earlier about corporations, LLCs. The worst thing you can do is be a sole prop. It's the easiest thing you can do. That's not good when you get sued, because somebody could come after your car, your house, any kind of assets you have, stocks, whatever. And now your entire life, any assets that you have, is at risk. But if you have a corporation, you have what's called a corporate veil. That is, if you use the corporation properly, meaning you have separate bank accounts and yada, yada, yada. We can have a separate class on that. If you get sued, they can go after your corporation, not you personally. If you ever have to deal with a lawsuit, take all this stuff to heart.